Chapter 4, The Birth of the American Republic. Part 4, Ratification. Whereas some of the states were quick to approve, that is, ratify the new Constitution, footnote, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey had quickly ratified in December of 1787, and Georgia and Connecticut followed soon thereafter in early January of 1788. End of footnote. Not everyone was completely sold on the new Constitution. As a result, it was not until June of the following year, 1788, when New Hampshire ratified, the 9th of the 13 states voting to ratify, and thus automatically putting the Constitution into effect. However, Virginia followed soon thereafter in June, and New York in July, thus assuring the Constitution that it would have the full support of the heavyweight states. North Carolina did not ratify until December of that year. Rhode Island, after first voting against ratification, finally in May of 1790 approved the Constitution, a month after Washington was sworn in as the new president. Anti-Federalists such as Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry voiced their fears through various newspaper articles that the individual states were simply surrendering too much of the people's sovereign rights to this new central authority. What were the guarantees that this new government would not come to assume the powers of the royal government that they had so recently fought to free themselves from? Federalists were quick to take up the challenge. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay writing replies to these questions under the pen name Publius. Some 85 articles were published by these three men, each article carefully explaining the workings and benefits of this new Constitution, a collection of articles which have come down to us today as the famous Federalist Papers. Madison turned some of the criticism of the Anti-Federalists on their head, pointing out that factions would form within the government simply because of the size of the new country, but these factions would serve the useful purpose of checking each other's ambitions for power, forcing debate and clarity of thought in government, and encouraging the people to follow political developments closely, rather than just letting government officials go about their business quietly out of the public sight, where tyranny might then truly develop. Hamilton, for his part, stressed how a stronger central authority would more likely attract society's leaders, involving them more closely in the building of a financially sound economic system, the very best guarantee of a society's stability, and consequently its ability to protect personal freedom and prosperity. And thus it was that the Federalists were able to bring the country to approving this new experiment in Republican government. The last days of the Confederation. The new federal Constitution was not submitted to the Congress of the old Confederation, where it probably would have faced such a resistance that it would not have passed, but was sent directly to the states for their approval. Each state was invited to set up its own process of ratification, usually through a special session gathered specifically for that purpose, to approve or reject the new Constitution. Thus, the Congress of the Confederation was left entirely out of the process that would bring its own existence to an end. However, it did perform for the new nation one new and very final important act when in 1787 it set out clearly with the passing of the Northwest Ordinance, the basis for designing and admitting new states into the Union. Having been accorded the right by the Treaty of Paris to develop the land west to the Mississippi as American land, the Continental Congress had a twofold job. One, to get the states to stop arguing over the ownership of that land, and two, instead, set up this territory, at least in the Northwest, as it was called, as candidate states by their own right, open to settlement and to admission to the Union as full member states as they gain a certain size of population and establish their own state constitutions. Thus it was that the Northwest Territory, that is today's Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and what would become the eastern portion of Minnesota, was divided originally into a number of territories or future states. 10 originally, but ultimately the 5+ described above. Also, plans were drawn up for the creation within these territories of towns and a township, according to a precise grid pattern, where each township was defined as a square of 6 miles on each side, further divided into 36 sections of 640 acres each, 1 square mile. Also, a section within each township was ordered by the Northwest Ordinance to be set aside for sale for the support of public education. And a public university was also to be established within each of these major states. The Northwest Ordinance was approved by the new federal Congress in 1789, and in 1803, Ohio was admitted as the first of the territories to gain official status as a full member state of the federal union.